Okay, so Howie Roseman could be shifting his draft strategy, with one wide receiver prospect linked to the Birds, while the trade-up scenario may not be as likely now. Plus, the Eagles brought in another top cornerback prospect, but would he be a good or bad idea? And the surprising perfect fit for Philly on draft night. So let's get into it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? I want to thank you all for the crazy support. Reminder that depending on when you're watching this, I'll be giving away that Big Dom t-shirt during tonight's live stream. But let's talk about the expectations of draft night, because it's insane that we're literally less than 2 weeks away. And naturally, the idea is that Howie Roseman goes O-line in the first, with NFL draft analyst Matt Miller sharing the more conversations he has, the more it sounds like right tackle is in play in round one. I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense considering the continued interest of a guy like Oklahoma's Tyler Guyton, who is Lane Johnson's mentee, or Jeff Stoutland's perceived favorite prospect in Troy Fautanu, as well as a couple other potential names. But if you're looking between those two, Fautanu likely means you're going to trade up. However, as Bleeding Green Nation shared, that doesn't really happen that often. In fact, there's only been 2 drafts where a team has traded up into the 12 to 19 range, sitting where the Eagles are. And again, that's about where Troy Fautanu would be, so the odds are not necessarily in the favor of that. Of course, you could stay put and take Guyton, or honestly, you might even be able to trade back and still get him while picking up a late 3rd or 4th. Yet I'll say this, obviously, just because NFL draft history says it's unlikely does not mean that's the case for a guy like Howie Roseman. Because if he likes a guy, I think we all know he's going to trade up and get him, like he's done in the first round in 4 of the last 5 drafts. Honestly, one of the most intriguing storylines behind this entire draft to me is the fact of, will Howie Roseman trade up and give up some of the draft capital, or trade back and get more of that for round 2? I mean, honestly, when you look at this, day 2 picks, there's a ton of those out there to like linebacker Edgerrin Cooper, who I think most everyone's on the same page of getting. Or there's a bevy of wide receiver options to choose from, which is what PFF calls for in Western Kentucky's Malachi Corley, saying the Eagles' production after the catch substantially dropped in 2023. Western Kentucky's Malachi Corley is dynamic with the ball in his hands and proved it by forcing 73 tackles over the past 3 seasons. Corley would provide a spark to Philadelphia's RPO and screen games while he further develops his route running. Remember, I talked about him in a previous video, but there's a reason they call this dude the YAC King. Now, I'm not sure how much the Eagles actually need a wide receiver, but again, given how deep this draft class is, it'd make a lot of sense, which I'll get to a little bit more of that in a sec. Of course, the other area the Birds have a need is tight end. And yeah, obviously the signing of CJ Uzomah adds a solid low-risk depth piece. And while I like the move, it's without question not a long-term answer, because Dallas Goedert ain't getting any younger, and he's already older than Zach Ertz. What? That's not as glaring as your holes of O-line, seeing that Cam Jurgens has moved over to replace Jason Kelce. No, I'm not calling that one a weakness. But right guard is in the immediate future. Plus, with this draft being heavy on tackles, it makes a lot of sense to draft Lane's replacement. And then yeah, I already mentioned linebacker Edgerrin Cooper, but if you don't get him, then I'd prefer Junior Colson as my next option. I've had this question a lot, but realistically, if I had to guess the first 3 picks of the draft, I would say O-line, linebacker, and then edge. Although perhaps Howie goes cornerback, after Alabama's Kool Aid McKinstry is reported to have a top 30 visit with the Eagles. Obviously, that's a big deal because McKinstry is only the 2nd top corner prospect alongside Cooper DeJean to get a visit with the Eagles. And sure, it could be the medical staff to check out Kool Aid's foot since he had Jones fracture surgery, but he did run a 4.47 at his pro day, so at least check that box as far as speed goes. Also, I think we're all in the same boat here, but the marketing opportunities with this dude are endless. However, while that'd be a lot of fun, the more important asset is the 21-year-old's game, which he definitely has, despite not being described as an elite athlete. But multiple scouting reports say he's one of the most intelligent football IQ cornerbacks in the class. I mean, the 6'1", 195-pound corner just makes things look effortless at times and hardly ever seems rushed or hurried. By the way, some places had him listed as 6'1" and others at 5'11", so maybe the whole shoes thing, I don't know, who knows. Either way, he's a gamer, and even started as a true freshman on Nick Saban's defense, so that kind of speaks for itself. Like, this dude just screams a good fit for Vic Fangio's defense, with another scout describing him as a serious guy on the field who knows ball, saying you rarely see him bust because he's always prepared and he's really natural in coverage.
Think about it. Watch the angles. Don't drink the Kool Aid. You're better than that.
Okay, fine. I'll give you a few drawbacks. He can get a little bit grabby at times, and then also with plays where he's not the direct target, he can sometimes fall asleep, but it's nothing major. Also, not gonna lie, the whole Jones fracture is a scary thought, just considering our history with drafting injured DBs. Although while McKinstry isn't my first choice at corner, it does seem like he'll be available at 22, so I could certainly get on board if the Eagles went that route. But how would you guys feel about having Kool Aid in Philly? And while you're answering that in the comments, I caught up with Pro Football Network's Anthony DiBona to get his thoughts on the Bama prospect, plus all the other happenings around the Birds. Let's start with, I think, what a lot of people are very interested in, certainly with a cornerback, any rumors of cornerbacks with the top 30 prospects or top 30 visits, and Kool Aid McKinstry from Alabama, Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report, I think, was the first one who had initially reported that. But a top 30 visit with the Eagles is very interesting because, again, we talk about these other cornerbacks. Everyone knows I love Quinyon Mitchell. A lot of people do, but that's the top list for me. However, it's still noteworthy because it's a top-rated cornerback and someone that Howie Roseman would have to go through and get in the first round. I think everybody would agree with that, or certainly, at the very latest, dropping back towards the very beginning of the second round, but probably not in that sense. So, you talk about that's a big investment. What do you like about Kool Aid McKinstry? Any potential concerns? And then also, just for the Eagles in general, how would he potentially fit within the scheme?
I think he would be a great fit. The only thing is he's kind of the opposite of Cooper DeJean, where Cooper DeJean is a guy that's more versatile. He can kind of play outside in the slot. Some people project him to play safety, whereas McKinstry is more of a strictly outside corner. You're not really going to want him in the slot much. And he's obviously, people don't think he's going to play safety. So, you would be drafting him to replace James Bradbury initially, potentially in year one, and then eventually being your top corner moving forward. But he's a great player, and the only real concern, I feel like people would be higher on him if he was able to work out and he wasn't hurt for the combine and didn't really participate much at the pro day either. So I feel like now that kind of his recheck went well, he seems to be on schedule to be able to play in training camp. So that'll be good for his stock as well. But if you just look at the numbers, then the way he's built, his size is great for the position. His numbers last season were great. He only allowed 19 catches all season on 39 targets for just 205 yards. Only one touchdown. His ball production kind of went down. He didn't really have as many takeaways. He didn't have any interceptions last season. But if you look at his production against the best guys in this draft, he only allowed 2 catches on 5 targets for 22 yards against LSU and Georgia combined. And those are obviously the powerhouse teams in college football. So, for him to shut down those teams pretty much by himself whenever he was matched up was huge. And his worst game last season, and I guess you could put worst in air quotes, was he only allowed 47 yards total against Texas. So, and that was his most for the season, and the most catches allowed. He allowed 4 receptions in that game as well. And those are you have Xavier Worthy and Mitchell, who are 2 other receivers that will be picked highly. So, he's been tested by the best competition. I know that's kind of a question for Quinyon Mitchell, who we both love, but I think he'll probably be the first or second cornerback taken. So McKinstry is more of a realistic target for the Eagles at 22 or a slight trade back.
You mentioned there the production, no lie. Granted, the interceptions, like you say, but still the production in itself of, all right, you limited a lot of the top prospects on that side. So that does speak for itself. Naturally, also, the top 30 visits, getting your medical staff to take a look at, make sure, you like the cornerback. But still, you're utilizing one of those 30 visits for a player like a Kool Aid McKinstry, which will be interesting. And so I love what you share on that side, too. And you talk about other playmakers. This is a guy who, not a first-round talent, but could be, when all is said and done, people look back and go, wow, that was actually a steal of the draft. And Brett Coleman initially had tweeted it, and it's kind of blown up from there. Daedron Taylor Demerson, I believe, is how you say that. But the safety from Texas Tech, there's a lot to like, certainly with the versatility and what he can provide for Vic Fangio's scheme. But what you've seen on the film, maybe what you've watched and takeaways there, I'm curious to get your extra insight on a guy like that.
He's actually a guy that when I first put out my big board a couple weeks ago before the combine, I only had a 4th round grade on him. But after seeing his numbers on the combine and kind of just going back and specifically looking for kind of like the Eagles' point of view and what they might want in Vic Fangio's defense, Brett Coleman was right on the money because he's a perfect fit for the Philadelphia Eagles defense and what Fangio's likely going to want to do, because you could just see the way he closes in that clip that I actually retweeted that Coleman put on Twitter, where he kind of just closes on the ball so quickly, even if he's playing from high or he plays in the slot, he has experience there. So, he's kind of that chess piece where if you don't get DeJean in the first round, you can kind of go with him, where primarily you're going to probably want him just as a deep safety. But, he's the guy that can kind of replace that Deshaun Elliott role that led the Dolphins defense in snaps last season, where he's just reliable. He's like you said, he's probably going to look back and people are going to think he's a steal because he's probably going to end up going in the 3rd or 4th round, but he would be a perfect pick for the Eagles. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him be picked in the 2nd round either, because he's been on that rise in the pre-draft process.
I love hearing you say a chess piece in particular, and immediately, and you mentioned it right after the fact with Cooper DeJean, but if Cooper DeJean goes early, like you say, that's the guy that potentially could go with. However, I've seen it on a lot of your mock drafts I've done, other people that post them on Twitter. Like Cooper DeJean is a very realistic possibility, not only for the top 30 visits like we mentioned, but, again, it's like, okay, he seems to be right around that 22 number. I'm curious. I'm of the mindset, I could be dead wrong, but I'm of the mindset that it feels like he might go a little bit before 22. I would love to get your input on where you think he'd fall as of today. I know that everything changes and it's just a prediction there, but also you did a great piece, and I've got the link in the description if nobody's seen it yet. But you kind of make the argument of the case for, like, is Cooper DeJean a perfect fit, or why is he a perfect fit for a Vic Fangio scheme? You kind of alluded to it there, but if you can take people through it a little bit more, if they haven't read your article, thoughts on Cooper DeJean, and also just prediction, where do you think he falls? Do Eagles have to trade up to get him, or will he actually be there at 22?
I could kind of see them having to do what they've done in recent drafts, where they moved up a little bit for Jordan Davis, they moved up a little bit for Jalen Carter. So, I mean, might have to make a move to say 19 or 20 to jump up, and like a small move for him. But I don't think it would take a drastic move, because I think Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold are kind of cemented themselves as the first two corners off the board, and then after that, it's going to come down to whatever teams prefer. But I mean, DeJean, like you said, and like I mentioned in my article, it's just in my opinion, what I like so much about him is usually with cornerbacks, if they fail on the outside, it's just like they're a lost cause. I mean, if it doesn't work out there, then you don't know what's going to happen. They might just sit. You'll end up trading them in a couple of years, whatever the case might be. But I feel like with him, I feel like his floor is so much higher because he has that positional versatility where he's played a little bit in the slot. He hasn't played safety much at all, but he just projects well there because of the way he can kind of cover so much ground and his athleticism. I feel like his floor is so much higher because at worst, I think he's probably like potentially a Pro Bowl caliber safety. So, I mean, if you're telling me that that's the worst case scenario of a guy, I mean, that might be a little extreme, but I just feel like he could be a starting safety at worst, and if things don't work out. So, especially in Philadelphia's situation where they have Bradbury potentially coming back next season, and they might just want him to start and see what he can do for Fangio, then you're not just wasting your pick. You're not just having a cornerback that's sitting on the bench. You're having a guy that can play kind of multiple roles. So I feel like that's why DeJean makes so much sense for the Eagles.
It's immediately, you look at the tape, you look at the film, you see Cooper DeJean. I mean, heck, people started posting all the basketball highlights from high school and everything. I was like, okay, the dude is an athlete. Everyone understands that. The follow-up question to that is, because we've seen these reports of these other top 30 visits that, they are going to happen, or, they are scheduled and all of a sudden it's canceled. We've gotten a number of those, and we can get into some specifics here in a second on some of those players. But I think it's up to 5 or 6 maybe. I've got your link in the description as well for the official tracker that I'll put there for people watching this. But, is that a smokescreen of sorts? Is it how you kind of alluded to it, is like, hey, if people realize this is going on, I mean, heck, I think the Lions are the ones that are like snooping around going like, hey, what are the top 30 visits for the Eagles doing? But is that hey, maybe let's stop ourselves here, and maybe we don't want to bring in all the guys because we have enough info? Or is it just like, yeah, that's a conspiracy, no big deal? Where do you fall on top 30 visits? Are they reported? Are they getting canceled? What's going on that side?
I mean, it's interesting because over the past couple of years, I've kind of made a name for myself for kind of keeping track of these things and all of these interactions. And it seems like over the years, like I said, they've been a giveaway of their interest. But now it's just, I think there's maybe been one visit canceled in previous years that I remember, or that was canceled for whatever reason the case might be. But the fact that there was initially 6 visits that were canceled, but then people were saying that Anaya Smith put on his Instagram story that he was in Philadelphia, so that kind of ruled that one out. It's kind of safe to assume that he made a visit there. But then there's still 5 other players that have people have said they either couldn't fit in their schedule, which doesn't make sense to me, because if you're a day 3 pick and an NFL team is showing interest, I feel like you'll make room in your schedule for them. So that's a little odd. And then you have other ones that came out where one reporter says it was a top 30 visit. Another reporter DMs me and says, oh, no, it's just a Zoom meeting, or it was just a workout after his pro day, or whatever the case might be. So, I mean, this is the things that I'm hearing from DMing and talking to agents or other reporters or the players themselves, because players themselves have told me that they had something scheduled and then they canceled because the Eagles told them that they had enough information that they view them as such and such round, or whatever the case might be. Because I was personally going to report a player that's projected to go late in day 3, and I'll say safety. I don't want to get too involved because obviously they don't want this stuff coming out, but he's done Zoom meetings now instead of a top 30 visit. So I guess now that allows the Eagles kind of free things up and see a guy like Kool Aid McKinstry a bit later in the process. So, I mean, it's also lying season this time of year, because now teams are catching on, and I'm sure. I mean, I posted about it where a person in the Lions scouting department actually, people add me to lists on Twitter all the time, but this person, it said Philadelphia Eagles top 30 visits, and I was like, okay, no big deal. And then I clicked on their profile, and it said Lions scouting intern. So, I mean, that could be the Lions just giving her this assignment and saying, oh, like, make a list of each team that you can. But I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, the Eagles have shown that this is a dead giveaway. So clearly teams are monitoring. It's kind of crazy.
It does seem pretty obvious, yeah, when you're getting added to those types of lists. I've been added to lists. I'm sure a lot of people have been added to lists, but it's when it's specifically titled the top 30 visits, and you're the one who is, like, to your point, completely well known for, hey, if anybody's going to track all these visits, it's going to be your page, it's going to be your account. Like, it kind of putting two and two together there. But that is interesting. Let's pause for a second or kind of shift to a different area, because there's obviously, you know, some bigger news as far as official signing that took place in a CJ Uzomah from former tight end of the Jets and the Bengals. It's not really I mean, he's not going to replace Dallas Goedert. Everybody knows that. It's a one-year deal. But you bring in a presence like that, possibility for, you know, a few extra catches, perhaps. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Dallas Goedert's healthy and no issues there. But we've seen at times when tight end 2 is required, there's really nothing on that side. But I'm curious to get your takeaway. This acquisition or signing CJ Uzomah, what he could bring to this offense. Does it help? I guess it probably will help somewhat, but it's also for people that didn't see the tweet or didn't realize. Interesting wording from Ian Rappaport, I believe, saying bolster the passing attack. That's a pretty, I don't know, taking a little bit of extra rein with saying like this is going to be an extra benefit to the offense. But anyway, I digress. I'm curious to get your thoughts. How big of an impact will it make, and where does he fit in best or most impact, I guess, with Philly's offense?
Well, first, that was definitely some good old agent wordplay right there that was thrown in there for that tweet. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's a bigger deal than it's probably being made out to be, because when Dallas Goedert goes down, because it's inevitable, he's going to really ever see the field, and Grant Calcaterra hasn't really produced either. So, I mean, this is a guy that's proven. Granted, he hasn't went over 500 yards or whatever the case might be, but, I mean, it's just when you have a guy that started games in the league, Cincinnati, with who now Eagles assistant head coach Jamal Singleton. He was also in Cincinnati for 2 years with him as well, which I tweeted about, so I'm sure they have some kind of relationship. He was able to pass along information that way. But, I mean, yeah, he struggled with the Jets. He didn't really have much of a role. They kind of had a crowded tight end room, where now he has more of a defined second tight end role. But I also don't think it rules out taking a tight end later in the draft or whatever the case might be there. But to see the Eagles actually put in some effort for a second tight end is kind of refreshing.
It is, to your point. I remember we did this back whenever, gosh, I'm trying to recall the exact game. I think it may have been after the second Dallas game, maybe, or it might have been before that. But we were breaking down and talking about one of those specific instances of Jack Stoll is not wide open, but like very much open in that sense. And to your point, like Jalen just refuses to throw it in that direction. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by it. We'll see how much of a difference does it make. At the very least, you know, again, you tweeted this and we talk about it here as well, but the fact that it's so late in free agency, I mean, the guaranteed money, once that does officially come out, you can't imagine it's going to be too much. So, hey, you know what? You low risk, high reward type of signing. You get a veteran presence. If you watch any of the mic'd up of CJ talking to teammates and everything else, it seems like a really good guy. And also, again, I like what you said too about Singleton having extra insight on the type of player, individual character guy that he might bring to the team. So we'll see. It'd be interesting talking about a character guy and someone that we all love. I mean, there's not an argument at all. But DeVonta Smith, I mean, Smitty is, and this is the continual, you know, contract situation.
It was Tim McManus.
Tim McManus, right? That's who it is. Yes, yeah, you're correct. Tim McManus, but the optimism on the contract, you know, nothing official, but they're having talks, as we, you know, probably all surmise there. But you did another article too, so again, link in the description for people that want to check it out. What can we expect on this side for Smitty, for one, you know, numbers, but also, you know, reason being that this contract should get done, the optimism, all that.
Yeah, I mean, Howie Roseman has always tried to stay ahead of the market and kind of reward guys earlier than other teams. And wide receiver has basically become the new quarterback position, where whoever gets paid next is going to get paid the most. So he'll likely want to get Smith's extension done before the draft, hopefully, kind of like what they did with Jalen Hurts. And then we saw all those other quarterbacks get paid. So, I mean, I would expect Smitty to get probably 25 to 26 million per year around there, with probably like 70 million or more guaranteed, because if you look at the recent contracts that have been signed, Jerry Jeudy got like 40 million guaranteed, 17 million a year, which is questionable at best because he really hasn't put it together yet. And the Browns have shown on offense they haven't really been able to put together the puzzle.
He's just a guy too, so depending on who you ask.
You Steve Smith about Jerry Jeudy, but yeah, it's weird because we've seen a lot of contracts get thrown out this year. Guys like Darnell Mooney and Gabe Davis getting 13 million a year, and then obviously Mike Evans got. He deserved that, but he got, I think, 2 years, 52 million, something like that. But he's a little bit older receiver. So I feel like DeVonta Smith's going to get right below like Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp, like those three guys, and he'll probably get more than A.J. Brown because it's been a while since A.J. Brown was paid. So, I mean, that's just how the receiver market goes. We'll see how things work out with A.J. Brown down the line. But, I mean, it's only a matter of time. It seems like McManus's report kind of put any controversy at ease. So I expect it to get done relatively soon.
Which is good. You said it in last week's recording that we did, but the RELAX, relax, just, people, it's going to be fine. It's going to be taken care of. Some of these things get worked out quickly. Some of them take a little bit longer. We got Landon Dickerson. We got Jordan Mailata taken care of. It's just one after the other. This thing will get done. But yes, I'm excited for it. We will all rejoice. We can all take a deep breath whenever it is officially done, signed, sealed, delivered, and everything else there. Still staying with the wide receiver room, though. There's a couple of visits like we were talking about earlier that have been canceled and reported. I think Andrew DeCecco was the one that I saw initially of Brendan Rice, and we've talked about him a number of times on here. But interesting that he was scheduled, and DeCecco says that it was canceled on that side or not going to be taking place with a visit for Brendan Rice. There's other receivers that we've talked about and brought up here, but Johnny Wilson, not too much longer after that, was reported as, hey, official, he's here. I think John Clark was the first one that put that out. So that's not even a question. He's actually, here as of 2 days ago or something like that at this point. But talk to me a little bit about Johnny Wilson, because we've brought him up, I think, 3 weeks ago or so. And you like him. I like him the more that you kind of started turning me in his direction of man, this dude, there's some potential there. Everyone's got some things they need to work on for sure. But how would he fit in this Eagles offense? Why would he be a good potential acquisition here? And what dynamic could he bring to the I almost said Sirianni offense. I got to be careful. The Kellen Moore offense. So what would he bring?
Well, we actually I brought up Wilson when we were talking about people to watch at the combine, because I was like, this guy's like a freak of nature. He's 6'7", 240, ran reportedly 4.5. I think he ended up running a 4.6, but his just size is kind of is insane. And Josh Norris, who I really respect, he works for Underdog Fantasy, but he put up a great cut up of Wilson and kind of how he can move so well at his size, because a lot of people see that size and they're like, oh, he's going to play tight end at the next level. But it's just no, he can play wide receiver, and he can kind of do it well and do it anywhere, because he knows how to use his body. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to manipulate guys with his speed and kind of get guys close to his body, kind of slow down, and then use his ridiculous size to kind of reach out and make those catches. So, I mean, I feel like he's a perfect fit for the Eagles. Just he can play alongside A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. And then just moving forward, if one of them does move on or whatever the case might be, one of them gets hurt, he can kind of be that alpha on the outside as well, or on the inside. I feel like he has that versatility where you can kind of just throw him out there, throw up the ball, and obviously in the red zone, he would be a monster. So, I mean, there's really no downside to picking him potentially on day 2 or early day 3.
I think one of the, and you said it there actually too, but it reminded me, I think one of the scouting reports that I read was literally he's a monster in the red zone. That's a given, I suppose, for a guy that, like you say, 6'7", 230. But I was amazed because then I was like, okay, I want to see where this compares to Eagles players. And I was looking it up, the official 40-yard dash times. He's 0.03 slower than A.J. Brown whenever A.J. ran in the combine. And he was half an inch higher in vertical jump. I'm like, I know that's not everything. We still talk about agility, quickness, and everything. But still, just on those measurables, you don't necessarily expect a guy who's 6'7", 230 to have the same type of testing as A.J. Brown. So it speaks for itself. You talking about the ridiculousness that he can bring. It would be scary, no lie. I mean, obviously with his offense and what he might be able to put on that side. We've talked about receivers, and a number of people have mentioned it's hey, if you need or even think you might want a receiver, this is the draft to do it because of the depth and the possibilities there. We've seen a couple other visits for the Eagles, or at least as far as Senior Bowl visits and ones at the Combine that took place. But Ricky Pearsall is another name that has been thrown out there a couple times. The more that I see, the more that I watch of Ricky Pearsall, there's a ton to like about his game, and he feels like one of those that maybe comes in and makes a more immediate impact than some of these other draft picks. What do you like about Ricky Pearsall? Your takeaways from his tape or film you've been watching, and I guess maybe differences that he might bring to this Eagles offense.
I mean, it's hard to find anything not to like about his game. I mean, the only thing you can make the argument about is he has short arms for the position or whatever the case might be. But I mean, his route running is near flawless. He can make contested catches at his size. He made arguably the greatest catch in college football history with that absurd catch that I'm sure everybody's seen by now. But I mean, it's just his fit specifically in Philadelphia. I mean, kind of like all the other guys, he can kind of work well in the slot to get with alongside A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith. He can also play on the outside, and that was another thing that Josh Norris spoke about recently on Twitter, which is he's not just the slot guy. He can kind of win with routes on the outside, in breakers, out breakers, deep routes. He can kind of do it all. And I mean, I'm sure people kind of rule him out because of his size, his race, whatever the case might be. But I mean, the guy is a phenomenal player, and he's rising up draft boards. Him, Lad McConkey is another one that kind of people are taking note of now, and we're kind of doubting before because their athleticism scores were a lot better than people expected. Their production on the field in tough conferences is better than people expected. And I think you kind of just have to respect them now and expect them to be picked in either late first round or second round, because it's just their talent is undeniable at this point.
Within the SEC, though, I got to bring up Xavier Legette. That's another potential name out there, very similar to A.J. Brown. I mean, I know the whole South Carolina, but like extremely similar. When we look at the comparisons, a lot of NFL comps naturally have, hey, this is A.J. Brown 2.0. Takeaways from Legette. And also, I'll throw this out there, but I was shocked whenever I heard him speak because honestly, I didn't expect that accent. But it's the best thing ever. So, like, for people that are not,
I'm so happy you brought that up, because I was going to say the best part about his game is his accent, and just like being able to listen to that week in and week out in the locker room would be hilarious.
It would be so great in Philly.
The only concern about a guy like him is that he really had basically no production before last season, and he's 23 years old. So I mean, but you look at his athletic testing, and the year he had last year was dominant, and there's no denying it. But he had 71 receptions for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns last season. But before that, in before prior seasons, he only had 42 catches. So I mean, he just wasn't throwing the ball at all. He wasn't really utilized. I think the most targets he had in any season before last year was like 30 targets or something like that. So I mean, it's a little bit scary seeing a guy like that not being used before last season. But I mean, it's just like you said, the comparisons to AJ Brown it's really so close, because they're similar body types, similar athleticism, similar profiles on the field as well. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where he's drafted because of his age in comparison to some of these other guys and his kind of lack of experience in regards to like a big workload. But I mean, if there's somebody to take a chance on that I feel like can kind of exceed expectations, it's probably him.
Okay, there you have it. Again, it would be really cool to see him in Philly, certainly with getting the interviews. So it would be like, wow, okay, this is very, very unique there. But I would enjoy it. I'm not going to lie. Talking about interviews, though, and sticking with wide receiver, maybe I shouldn't say claim. That might be too drastic. But Paris Campbell did go on record of saying, like, hey, I would essentially bet on myself over other options, over other potentials. You know, I'm going to bet on myself any day of the week, which is totally fair. Like, I want that confidence from any player. So you talk about wide receiver 3, and we've mentioned it a number of times, but you know, if you draft someone, they'd be curious if there's some competition there. I do like the competitiveness. Do we feel like within this group here of the couple names that we've mentioned, you know, do they have a significant chance of overtaking? Is it a given that they would overtake Paris Campbell? And maybe that has to do with his number that he's going to go with of 80. But I need to get your thoughts on all that there.
Yeah, so I mean, the choice of number 80 wasn't great, but I mean, I thought he was going to take 13, but apparently someone told me on Twitter that I think DeVonta Parker took 13, so that might have changed things. But either way, not a great look. I'm a big fan of like single digits or team numbers on wide receivers, but that's just my new generation look, I guess. But I feel like if the Eagles invest an early pick in wide receiver, they're going to have the upper hand against Paris Campbell. I mean, he could say whatever he wants. I think he's going to have a role on special teams, especially, but looking right now at their roster, I think he's the clear favorite for wide receiver 3. But if they take a receiver in the draft, I feel like that player is going to at least compete in training camp with him. And I feel like it would be a big mistake for the Eagles not to take a wide receiver early in the draft, because I know they have AJ Brown, I know they have DeVonta Smith, and I kind of mentioned this in my article. It's just the price of receivers is only getting higher, and I feel like having a cost-effective player at the position, even though they will be paying top-end money to the other two, is just that's so important, because building around them, you're going to want those cost-effective depth options in case they get hurt or whatever the case might be. You don't want to have to spend $13 million for a Gabe Davis or whatever the case, or Darnell Mooney. You want to be able to have a reliable young player next to them that you can kind of go to in case if anything happens to the other two. So I feel like they should take a receiver regardless, and I'm not sure. Like right now, as it stands, Paris Campbell is probably the favorite, but I don't know if that'll last too long going into training camp.
This is Anthony DiBona, Pro Football Network, also the official Look Good, Play Good president. You know, so in terms of like official numbers and their rankings and everything else, I included that in one of the recent videos. But you know, hey, we could read the tea leaves on the numbers that they choose there, and I'm kind of with you. I was like, yeah, you know, 80, I didn't really love. Like, it's okay for Julio Jones whenever he did, because like, you know, he's an older veteran coming in. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But like, I don't necessarily say, yeah, that's a top option for receivers. So I'm
like, come on. if you're going into training camp and you're like a receiver that gets stuck wearing 40, your chances aren't that great. So I mean,
there's that blatant, like, okay, you definitely will not see the field. That is a for sure.
Yeah.
That's a given. So, but no, it will be interesting. And you made a great point there. Honestly, I mean, you talk about the Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney, guys like that. It's like if you're gonna have to pay that. I would rather the potential and the optimistic side of saying, hey, there's a lot more that you could do with a rookie in a deep class like we're talking about. So totally makes sense to me. Stick with the number changes real quick. Another couple moves, Boston Scott, his number going to Ty Davis Price. Most likely he's on the move. Julian Okwara has taken Zach Cunningham's 52, which is a pretty decent number. Not bad. I saw your tweet about that one. Increases
people took that. People took that way too seriously on Twitter.
See
there needs to be like a sarcasm font on Twitter or something like that. It was rough.
That is just the norm. I mean, it doesn't matter. Even videos that I post, and I'll try to do like a little meme afterward, and like half the people get the sarcastic joke, and half the people are like, "You got to be kidding me! That's ridiculous." I'm like, it's sarcasm. So but I understood. I appreciate it. So for what that's worth. But still, on that side, I mean, Julian Okwara, there's some potential. I feel like he gets overlooked at times because a lot of the other signings, we forget it was so early on. But just with what we've seen the team do, where do you legitimately feel, and we can talk about the number itself, but where do you legitimately feel like odds-wise of making this team, his impact, could he be, potential sleeper of sorts with the signings?
I absolutely think he could make a run for a roster spot because, like you said, how quickly they kind of signed him spoke to me too, because it was early before free agency really started, and I feel like he was kind of cut, was sitting out there for a little bit, and then the Eagles kind of jumped on him because he has shown at times that he has shown flashes of potential. He was drafted high by the Lions. He produced whenever he was on the field, and I feel like he kind of brings that size, athleticism, and versatility that can be used on the edge in Vic Fangio's defense. I mean, he's not a guy you probably want dropping coverage a bunch, but I mean, if they're going to be rotating guys in a little bit here and there, he could play 100, 200 snaps, whatever the case might be. And I feel like after Zach Bond, there's not a lot of, who's Patrick Johnson or guys like that. I feel like he should be able to beat those guys out if he can show that he can kind of contribute on special teams as well. So, I mean, I don't know why people are writing him off. I feel like he's kind of forgotten, like you said, and he should be able to kind of push for a roster spot, depending on what they do at edge in the draft as well.
True. Yes, that's a good point. Brandon Graham even was kind of hinting or alluding to it in his interview with Ross Tucker of like, we'll see. I like our group. But he kept saying, like, he said it probably 3 times, I think, of Howie, I love Howie. Howie's got a mindset for the draft. We don't know who we're getting. So it will be interesting on that side for edge. I'm going to put you on the spot because talking about these playmakers, the Julian Okwara, guys that are, again, I don't really know if official underrated might be the better term. I was going to say like a sleeper, but like a underrated free agency signing, someone that's not really expected as much of that hype, but who would be just your prediction right now that come away from this season, we're going to go back and say, yep, that was for sure the biggest sleeper or underrated free agent signing from the Eagles?
I think for me, it's got to be Zach Bond. I feel like because we saw Howie Roseman he basically mentioned that Fangio views him as the next Andrew Van Ginkel. So I feel like for him to kind of allude to that, where he didn't really have to talk about that signing at all because it was such a minuscule move that kind of got swept under the rug because of they signed Saquon Barkley, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Bryce Huff. He was kind of just like the other guy. But I mean, when you see what they have on the edge, I feel like he's their best option in terms of being able to drop into coverage. So I feel like he's going to have a role regardless. And based on what he's getting paid, which is basically next to nothing, I feel like it's going to be hard to not like his contract. And at worst, I feel like he's going to be like a special teams ace that'll contribute in all 4 phases and help in that regard. So, I mean, either way, I feel like it's going to be a great signing for them.
Got to get your take on the new helmets or potential of new helmets. NFL, for people that are not aware or didn't catch it, allowing for a third option of a helmet. Potentially, my initial thought or immediate reaction is like, oh, hey, we can get the black helmet option. But then people start throwing out an all-white, a whiteout with the Eagles, white, Kelly green with the wings on that side. But thoughts on that? What should it be? Should it be the blackout? Are you a fan of the white helmets? If we try to go that route, just takeaways there.
Well, as president of the Look Good Play Good Association, I think this is a great rule. And but in all seriousness, I immediately thought of the all black uniforms. But then I saw people talking about the white helmet, and I feel like that would honestly be the better pick. I don't think they've ever worn one, but you can kind of put either the midnight green, the eagle, the logo on that one, or the decal from the Kelly green, and it would kind of work with either one. Well, I don't know if the Kelly green, I think the logo on that was white, but regardless, I feel like an all white uniform would kind of change things up. You can kind of go with the all white look and switch things up instead of going with the all black. But I mean, I personally have always liked the black jersey because of the Brian Dawkins days. So that's kind of been my preference. And I think I'm not happy that they kind of went with like that metallic black helmet. I would rather just like a matte black helmet. I think that would look better. But I think I'm going a little bit too much. I'm too invested in this stuff. But it's what I do.
I mean, I'm kind of right there with you, honestly. That's why I kept saying the black helmets. But yeah, I get it. Everybody's got preferences, the differences on that side. I absolutely, one thing that I'm not going to hide from is the week 1 matchup with the Packers. Not a fan. I was going to go to that game in Philly for sure. It should have been a Sunday Night Football game, Monday Night Football game, prime time, NFC matchup. 2 teams that are Super Bowl favorites for the NFC. I don't think that's a stretch to say at all. But now it's going to be in Brazil. I mean, good for people that are going and have the trips and all that. Have a blast, have fun. It's going to be awesome. I made a sarcastic joke that people thought I was saying I believe that they can't wear green at the stadium because the Corinthians arena in their superstition, whatever. But like, just from the NFL standpoint, I was like, it made more sense to me of being the Browns. Again, I've got an emotional investment here, but talk to me. Is there some optimism that I can have? Does this make sense? Why is this okay at the very least for week 1?
Well, I mean, it just comes with the territory of being viewed as a contender or whatever the case might be, because obviously the Packers are viewed as one of the hottest teams in the NFC. The Eagles kind of had obviously an embarrassing end to the season. So, I mean, they're kind of probably trying to capitalize on both teams early in the season before things happen or whatever the case might be, because I don't know if the Packers are going to repeat their success. I personally love Jordan Love. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I feel like they should do very well. But I think the Browns would have been an easier matchup for the Eagles because I think just Cleveland's offense is not on the same level as Green Bay's offense is. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes because it's going to be a tough one. And I mentioned it as well on Twitter that since 2018, the Eagles have only played one team, and that was in 2018, a team that had a winning record the prior year. So, I mean, now that was the Atlanta Falcons in 2018. Since then, they haven't played anybody that had a winning record in week 1. So now they have a tough task that they'll be tested right away. We're going to find out how good this team is and how good these new coordinators are right away.
It will be a challenge, that's for sure. And we'll see. You know, if people are in Philly, then you got the channel. If not, you got to buy the Peacock subscription. So good luck to you. There's also that thrown in there, and it's a Friday night game. So it's a lot of changes that we're getting used to. I will say that. Some good, some not so great, depending on who you are. But anyway, we will move to the last question here. Top 30 visits, O-lineman. We've continued to see that. We mentioned it on last week's show of Jeff Stoutland being enamored with Troy Fautanu. And, you know, it's like, okay, maybe they'll bring him in. Possibly. We hadn't seen anything. It is official. I should say that it's official, like of a report that he's coming in. We'll wait and see when it's officially official. But, you know, the rumored interest, the enamoration, if that's a word, I don't know, but of Jeff Stoutland is legit, I would say. And then also, is it Rosengarten? I think that's the other the guard. Yes, okay, the other Washington. So talk to me a little bit about the 2 prospects here on the O-line, the Jeff Stoutland interest.
Alf, I mean, both players are phenomenal prospects. Fautanu was obviously the better prospect, I feel like. Everybody saw it, kind of went viral. Jeff Stoutland was like drooling at him after the drill. He was like, as he went by. But like, it's just like he's ideally, I feel like. So I saw a thread on Twitter this evening that was like talking kind of down on Fautanu, saying that he didn't do great against elite competition. He got help a lot. But I feel like that was just the way Washington kind of like schemed their offense, I feel like. It wasn't necessarily because he's not good. And honestly, in Philadelphia in year 1, he'd be playing guard anyway, so he wouldn't really have to be on an island by himself. So, I mean, he'd be in a great situation between Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson on the right side. So, I mean, I think that would kind of let him get his feet wet, kind of like they did with Cam Jurgens last year, and before moving out to right tackle whenever Lane Johnson gets hurt or whatever the case might be there. And I feel like Rosengarten's kind of like a guy that I was low on when I first watched, and then I saw his numbers at the combine, and I was like, wait a second, this guy's one of the most athletic offensive tackle prospects ever, so let me go back and watch him. And then sure enough, now I'm right there with everybody else. When I release my big board, he'll probably be around the 2nd round grade. So I feel like at 50 or 53, he's a perfect fit. And I feel like he's honestly, in terms of playing guard, I think he's a better fit than Fautanu is. So I think he's another guy that makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. And obviously Jeff Stoutland loves his athletes along the offensive line. So why not go with one of the best in the class?
I love it. I'm telling you. As far as these O-line prospects, that's the potential there that we keep talking about. You know, is it going to be first round? Is it going to be second round? Surely within the first couple picks. But Anthony, appreciate it as always. If you guys are not following Pro Football Network's Anthony DiBona, the expert analysis, everything else, we try to do this just about once a week. And so we're hopefully getting better, but we appreciate the comments. We appreciate the feedback, even the random, you know, trolls or whatever, whatever. If you want to just comment anything, we
I love you all.
to just
I love
about
you all.
everything. So we will. But yes, appreciate you coming on as always, though, man. It's a great time.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Awesome. We'll see you guys. Go Birds.